I'm wondering if Christmas Eve was trying to do something that I just don't get. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the film is bad, but I feel like there's very much nothing there. I also wonder if, were Patrick Stewart not in this, would anybody have ever actually seen it? Because once you take him out of the equation, I feel like there's not much left. That's not to say the acting is bad, the acting is good across the board. But what would have drawn me to this? Well, I'll be honest, the premise, as well as Patrick Stewart, the premise did draw me in, and I thought this sounds quite interesting and it could go really well if it's done well. Unfortunately, I didn't think it was funny. So basically, there's a power outage in New York, and groups of people are stuck in 6 different elevators. And obviously, the majority of the film is filmed inside of these elevators, and these people, often with different personalities, they clash, they start to talk, we get to know more about them. The important thing here was that these people were characters, and that they had strong personalities that we could get to know. Otherwise, what's the point? And I'll be honest, there were a couple of characters in this who I thought were alright and fairly interesting, but honestly, I didn't think there was anything really going for it. We were just observing 6 groups of people stuck in an elevator where there was no action, nothing was happening. I didn't care about their own personal problems, if they shared any. I wasn't bothered about what they were meant to be doing that night and, what plans were being delayed. I felt like the characters just didn't have anything going for them. And it's not an acting problem. As I said, the acting is fine, but the script, the dialogue, it's stagnated. There's nothing there. It's not interesting. And I was just willing for the power to come back on so they could get out the elevators and we could all get on with our lives. It lacked everything. The only one that I found particularly, or slightly, interesting is the surgical one, the hospital lift. That one was slightly interesting, but that's mainly because I really love medical dramas and it gave a slight sniff of that. But the rest of them, I just thought they were dull and there was nothing for it. Patrick Stewart, I mean, he's good in it, but he's not exactly in it abundantly. Apparently he was also the last person to be cast, though how true that is, I'm not 100% sure. The film is directed by Mitch Davis and written by Mitch Davis and Tyler McKellar, and we do have some nice camera work. Obviously, when you're working with a confined space with the lifts, you have to make it interesting to look at. And while I thought the dialogue and the characters' actions were dull, I apologise if you can hear that annoying car horn outside. While the characters themselves were not very well written, I do think we had some interesting shots. The camera work was quite good. I found that slightly engaging. And each lift as well had a slightly different feel to it. So the film got some aspects right. I also like the soundtrack. I'm not sure who's behind the soundtrack. I'll see if I can find out. But I feel let down because the film had a lot of potential. It sounded like it could be fascinating. Also, there was very little Christmas in this. So even though it's called Christmas Eve, there's just hardly any festivities in it at all. And yes, I realise they're stuck inside lifts. How much could there actually be? They definitely could have done a lot more than what they did. Music by Christian Davis, who I'm just going to assume is related to the director. Honestly, it's not the worst film in the world I've ever seen. It's got some positive points, namely the camera work and the soundtrack. And the acting was fine. Other than that, I just don't get it. It probably is supposed to be a character study of what happens when different personalities are kept in a confined space. But we have I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here for that. We don't need this. We have Big Brother for that. This just sounded good on paper, was not the best in execution.